Well, my neighbor keeps finding stuff in his garage. This is an old clock from about 1910, and this is pretty much the way it looked. The movement was held in by one screw. You can see there's a chunk missing on the bezel where the clock face mounts, and this was held in by one screw and just kind of flopping around. So I took the stuff off. I didn't want it falling off of there. So I kind of looked it up to see what it was, and I'm sitting on my computer, and I took that movement and I set it on my coffee table on a cloth. And so I was on the computer and doing some stuff, and I heard this noise. I heard a kind of a ding sound. So I didn't pay much attention to it. I thought it was something going on with the software I was working on. I was editing a video is what I was doing. So anyway, I finally got the video edited, and I took the headphones off, and I'm walking back by my coffee table, and this clock is ticking. The little arm is going back and forth, and this movement is ticking, just like this. So that kind of creeped me out. I'm going, this thing hasn't run in 50 years. Well, almost 50 years. The last time that anybody did anything with it, it was serviced back in 1980. And according to the story, it was picked up from the shop and at some point thereafter was dropped. And that is the way it is now. So the thing just starts ticking by itself. And then so I'm going, well, this thing is sending me a message. It's saying, put me back together. I want to be a clock again. So yeah, I was ready to just hand it back to him and say, I can't do anything with this. But after this, what was I going to do? So anyway, I watched it for a while, and then the ding went off again. So then when I looked it up, I found out that goes off every half an hour. And you'll hear it in a second. So that hammer you see down at the bottom, that strikes the hour, and that's the gong is in the cabinet. So I have to try to figure out what this thing ever looked like, and I think I found exactly what it is. And it is the Dover. This is the Waterbury clock made in 1909, and this is the Dover model. And how I know that it is there was so many things that were exactly the same. I don't have this scroll in there, but I was looking at the feet and looking at the pattern, and this is the pattern that's on the feet. It's exactly the same. And the same with the side ornaments, whatever those are called, over here on the side. And so I have to try to remake those columns that are on the front. I don't have any of that, and I have to redo the apron part of it where that design is, plus those other ones. And so I found a design that I liked and set it up on my computer, and I did a program and brought it out to the NC mill and cut it out, and I did both sides. So those will be painted gold when they're done, and it looks really close to the same color as the other parts of that clock. I thought I'd show how I do some of this work on the CNC router. This is a program called Vectric Aspire. It's specifically designed for woodworking and for CNC routers. It's a CAD/CAM program. So I picked this design off of one of the other pictures of one of the other clocks because it was the cleanest. Now this is for the front apron. If you notice that it had a similar design on it. So I've did quite a bit of work to it, and this shows how I make the tool path, and it goes through there and creates the tool path. Then I can show a preview of that tool path to make sure that it's going to do what I want it to do. And that's it. So that I make a file and I just take it out to the router, and it knows what to do with that file. But that's enough of that. Here I'm cutting out the scroll pattern on the bezel. The clock face sits in there, and then this is the pattern that goes on the outside of it. This will be painted gold, and then I have to wipe off the excess, and I have to go through quite a process to get the paint just where it needs to be. And I've gone through several different trials on how to get that right, and the only thing that seems to work is this thinner that I bought at a garage sale. To be honest, I don't even know what it is, but I spray the paint on there, and of course there's overspray all over the black lacquer, and this thinner that I have wipes off the gold paint off of the lacquer but doesn't attack the lacquer. It's the only thing I could find that would do it that way. Regular paint thinner wouldn't work. I was able to find some mineral spirits at a garage sale, but that didn't work either. So whatever this shit is, it works. What I'm doing here is sanding off any of the traces of the gold paint that might have oversprayed onto some other area, and then brushing whatever the sanding dust and sawdust and stuff out of the scroll work, because I'm getting ready to shoot it with some clear lacquer, and then you'll see how it highlights everything so much better once the clear lacquer goes on over where you've sanded. We're cutting the scroll work now that's on the base. It's on the front. If you saw the original picture of what that was supposed to look like, there was scroll work on there, but somebody had gotten to it and sanded a bunch of stuff off and put stain and stuff on there, so I have to replace that scroll work. This isn't exactly the same scroll work, but it's very close. To be honest, I'm not even sure how they cut this back in 1909 when they made this clock. I don't know if it was all just done by hand. I mean, they didn't have CNC machinery. It must have been done by hand. I'm sure as hell not going to do it by hand. It'd be a mess if I tried that. I was set up to cut this twice. The first time was going to be a little shallow, and then the second time it was going to be full depth, but I liked the way it looked. Cut shallow. This looked better. When I looked at the picture of the original Dover, the scroll work was fairly fine. It wasn't a wide line. So I did a little sanding on the surface with some very, very fine paper to get rid of any of the burrs or anything that the cutter kicked up. So now I'm going to go ahead and spray it, and this is the process I use. I take this thinner and I soak a rag or a paper towel in it, and after I get it fairly well saturated, I wrap the towel around a block, so I use it as a kind of a screed. I don't want the paper towel going down into the scroll work. I don't want it pulling any of that paint out of there. I just wanted to clean off the surface. I kind of apologized for the camera work. I didn't realize I didn't have the camera set, the tilt on it high enough to catch everything. And I don't have another one of these to do, so we're kind of stuck with this one. So I go ahead and spray the gold in there and try to make sure it gets into all the little nooks and crannies, which means you got to get it all over everything. And then right away, I take the thinner and I just wipe right over the top. When it starts to smear, I unwrap some of the paper towel and I continue on until I get to the end. Then what I'll end up doing is taking the block out of there and cleaning off some of the edges. And one of the things I don't want to do is keep going back over it, because you squeeze that thinner in there into the paint, and it thins it out so you can see through it. So now I'm going to wipe that off. And if there's anything left, in and around the scroll where I didn't completely get it wiped off, it's tough. It's going to stay there until everything dries, and then I just take some 800 grit paper and lightly sand it, and it comes right off. And I do that, as you saw I did with the bezel. You haven't seen me coat that yet, or this with the final coat of clear, but that will be afterwards. Now this is just a clean cloth to clean off any of the excess thinner. It doesn't seem to attack the lacquer, but I don't want to just let it sit on there, so I'm going to clean it off. That seemed to work really well with the bezel, so that's what I'm going to do with this one. Looks like it belongs sitting next to that Les Paul Custom. So after several coats of lacquer, I started to reassemble it, which didn't go that well. The only new pieces I made for that were the bezel that holds the clock itself and the two columns. Everything else is original and warped and not square. So it was a bit of a struggle to get it as close as it is now, which is fine. But there's little gaps here and there, and I'm afraid to do too much, add screws and pull some of the warp out of it, because that old wood will crack. So it is what it is. Ticking away. So it's getting ready to chime. 12 o'clock. It's actually Super Bowl Sunday. This one's done, at least as far as I'm concerned. I'll let the owner tweak in the timing on it. It takes a couple of days to get it dialed in, and it's not that difficult to do. Anyway, thanks for watching, and it's time to move on to the next one. I have a firebox to restore. You'll find out what that is at some point.